Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Believe in a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do, keep breathing.
That's right. When you don't know what to do, just keep on breathing. From the City of Angels in Los Angeles, welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver at caregiverdave.com, along with my lovely co-host, Carletta Cole, who isn't here today, but she'll be back next week. And we're also coming to you live and on demand 24/7 on numerous syndicated radio and podcast networks, on 26 global audio and video platforms, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Vimeo, Stitcher Radio, Blog Talk Radio. I'm sorry, the list goes on and on. In fact, we've been voted #1 caregiver podcast of the top 50 on Player FM and #2 caregiver podcast on FeedSpot out of the top 60. We got to try harder there. And #2 on caringvillage.com. And we have an especially exciting show planned for you today. Lindy Lewis. She's a recovering, authentic alpha female who, through sharing her humbling blocks and pivotal collection of tips and tools to live an empowered and full color life, she does this through her speaking, her books, her workshops, as well as her coaching and retreats for the Alpha-preneur, ready to create from their passion and purpose. Anyway, before we get started with Lindy, I do want to take this moment and thank my last week's guest, Dr. Terry Zachary, author of Get a Grip on a Grip Before It's Too Late. He's a hand and grip expert and author of Great Hands, Great Life, and the inventor of Handmaster Plus hand exercise system. And just a reminder, you can watch or listen to that interview and all our interviews on our membership website, caregiverdave.com, or any of our other 26 global networks that I mentioned earlier. All right, enough of that. Lindy, so great to have you on the Caregiver Dave show again. This is your second time. We rarely have people on twice, but you
I feel
seem
special.
to have made it. I don't know.
Thank you. I'll tell you, I was hearing about your last week's guest, and I was underway all day caregiving for my sweet papa, who's 87, and his back's going out, his hands are going out, and all kinds of stuff. And I thought your exercise program might be good the grip guy, the grip guy.
He needs a hand grip too. It's kind of a miraculous thing. This guy used to be a chiropractor and then a professional golfer. And he invented what did he call it? The Handmaster Hand Plus exercise system. Look it up on the internet. I think it might help your father.
Well, I will look that up. Well, thanks, Dave, for having me back. And it's a pleasure to be here and continuing sort of my mission to those type A all day women out there, just going, and they tend to be caregivers and we tend to be full tilt, all or nothing kind of people.
Yes. So I asked you last time, and maybe they don't remember the answer, but who is Lindy Lewis and why was she placed on this earth?
Oh, that's such a big question. Honestly, I think Lindy Lewis is just this young, spirited heart that just wants to lead and love, lead from heart, not head, and continue sharing compassion and little pieces of kindness in the world. I teach a lot of yoga. I teach a lot of women to be good to themselves, because I always sort of talk about when you're good to yourself, you're naturally good to others. And, my whole life, my first book, I remember talking about I was a little girl, and I would just spend time, painting on little pieces of bark and write like words like love or peace or sweet. And I would gift them to the neighborhood, and I'd run around and I did all of these things. And it's just kind of my little heart and soul that I would offer as gifts to neighbors. Or I have this little girl that I'm sort of mentoring now, and she makes little hats and she makes little rock people. She puts them on sticks. And there's so many great crafts and heart art, as I call it, that you can do at these young ages. And then I think, then we enter the alpha female. We are conditioned to achieve. We are conditioned to sort of set that sweeter, softer, tender part of us to the side, and go where we get a paycheck, an accolade, accomplishments, titles, things that really just define our value, rather than just recognizing that just being maybe a really kind, loving human is a great gift to offer this planet. So that's a long-winded sort of roundabout, but so I'm circling back to that, and now that I'm 55.
Wow, you sure don't look it.
Well, we're there now. Yeah, I know. I didn't realize it was live. I'm like, I literally was just underway with my dad in Coeur d'Alene. And
you look great
today. Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Now you're a woman and you're a caregiver, and most 75% or so of caregivers are women. I'm the rare animal here, a male caregiver. But what do you think women caregivers are going through that you can help them with on a daily basis?
It's a very great question that I am asking myself daily right now, because I sort of did really good. I managed to kind of put myself back in that checking order. I'm priority, my oxygen mask on before somebody else's, so that we can continue to take care of ourselves. And it's very difficult when you are caregiving, because there's no stopping point. There is always a need, always for our bright spirit, our energy, our helping hands, whatever it ends up being. So as I'm caring for my aging parents, it's something that I think that we can just introduce and recognize. And in one of my books, I talk about it, but boundaries can be healthy. And it's not from a place of, I call them boundaries aren't bitchy. I'm sorry for the language, but I mean, they really aren't. They're just a way for you to say, hey, wait, I'm starting to spin out of control. And if I don't take a pause and hand the baton to somebody else there's lots of people who want to help. If they don't do that, then I'm going to be in the same place that my dad is when I'm 87 years old. And I have high hopes to be just a little bit healthier than maybe that generation. And then, the next, I call it the 500-year plan.
You're the new and improved model, the 2.0.
New and improved. Hopefully my daughter, who is now a chiropractor, hopefully she'll be able to step that game up a little. But we have to take care of ourselves, and it's super counterintuitive. You
bring a great word, boundaries, because caregivers often get their feelings hurt. Their loved one, especially if it's a parent or a child who's a special needs child who's now an adult, they seem to be lacking the ability to make boundaries. And so I always tell them, well, if somebody crossed a line and upset you, it's really your fault, because you never told them where the line was. So they had to find it and cross it to see if that's a line. So you need to go out there, and there's a great book called Boundaries, and let people know, listen, you know what you did yesterday? I don't like that. And I don't want you to do that again. And if you do cross that line again, this is what will happen. So please, I'm letting you know now, I forgive you because you didn't know the boundary was there, the line was there. And it's just a simple little thing, but people who don't like confrontation and are yes people and are people pleasers, boy, that's so hard for them. Why do you think that is?
Well, Dave, I mean, I would say caregivers tend to be that people pleaser, and we are defined by that external atta girl, and you got this, and woo, and you're helping.
Yeah, you don't need any help.
Yeah, well, and I think, introducing boundaries, it is really brave and it is really scary, and especially when it's your own family. And in my case, it's really easy for when I say, hey, look, no, I can't do that doctor run. I'm going to go get a massage, that's like, wow, aren't we spoiled? And I think I grew up with that mentality, like, oh, well, look at the little prima donna going to get a massage, can't take care of, somebody or whatever. And so we are probably our worst advocate, or worst critic, I should say. And we need to advocate for our health and get ourselves those little massages, or take 10 minutes in front of the fireplace, or sit down with a cup of tea instead of a cup of coffee and just breathe and really belly breathe and just allow your parasympathetic nervous system to sort of rekindle and just engage. And so that's one of the things I really like to work with that alpha female is we're so used to running on the top half of the tank, or the top half of the lungs, so to speak, that we're missing that deep belly breath, that just rest, and that it's okay to do nothing. It's okay to just sit a minute. And I'm not talking Netflix nothing. Like, don't just go plug in and numb out, because that's just another way to numb. It's like sitting and breathing and holding your beautiful body in just a state of gratitude.
Yeah, because you're into yoga, aren't you?
I am. I do. I teach a lot of kids yoga. I teach yoga in
breathing
jail
is very important. Yes.
And then I teach a restorative class. It's just a restorative flow. And it's a whole workshop on just reviving the parasympathetic and really supporting that rest, digest, renew. And that's where we heal. I mean, that's where our body will grow old, lovely.
So tell us, what kind of caregiver are you? How old are your parents?
87. And that's a role I just sort of fell into because it worked out in my life.
We all fall into it.
Yes, we do sort of fall into it. And they literally fell. My mom tripped on a dog, broke her femur. Oh, here's an interesting thing for those caregivers out there. All these new parts people are getting. So mom had a fake hip and a fake knee, and the bone between crushed when she fell. So all those titanium parts are actually a pretty big challenge for people in orthopedics. Those doctors are phenomenal what they're having to sort of rebuild. So they've plated her, but she's still in a wheelchair and still needs to go to doctors, still needs to go to dentists, still needs to do those things. So
how was she before she fell?
She shuffled, 82 and shuffling, but pretty good.
So they kind of take care of each other, your father and your mother?
They do, but they both went down she went down and just, that's kind of that's what you hear when there's a deep love. I mean, they both went down together. I mean, his back went out the next day.
He tried to like catch her or something?
No, there was no catching. They were totally in separate spaces. I think it was just, he kept it together through the surgery and through all of the scary part for her, because we had to get her off of her, her Eliquis and the blood thinners before they could even do surgery. So she was in quite a bit of pain before they could, do a lot of, so I think he kept it together. And then she was in surgery and his body said, okay, your turn, big guy,
So things have changed. The dynamic has changed for you since the fall. Yes.
Yeah, that was Halloween last year. But before then I was taking care of kids. I would promote, language and stress management in our younger generation. I would teach them about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, and how when we're always on social media and we're always connected to just something externally stimulating you, that we're never really allowing our body to just take a breath, to heal. And our bodies are remarkable. And so I try to teach them appreciation for their body. And I do that through yoga, but also like a series of really fun just workshops where it's very engaging and interactive. So that was sort of where it was. And then COVID sort of shut that arm down for a minute. And so then this other one came about, and then I just took care of myself in the meantime and went to the garden. During COVID, I stayed in the garden and made magical tinctures and just worked with earth to really steward beauty.
Now, a lot of caregivers who are taking care of their parents, for example, are experiencing something called role reversal. All of a sudden, they're starting to feel like a parent to their parent. And their parents, who are feeling a little resentful, are starting to feel like they're being treated like a child, So have you experienced any of that, perhaps?
I'll tell you, I write about my humbling blocks, and yes. But can I just say, for those of us that have the privilege of taking care of our parents, I mean, it really is, because they did put a lot of time in with us. At least mine did.
Right,
and
their
in some
turn
cases.
now. Yeah.
But they're just as sad. I mean, I just step into their shoes.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what's it going to be like when I'm 86 and I just fell over a dog and I can't walk? I mean, I hope one of my kids are kind of nice to me and come from a little more grace and they hold space for the forgetting brain and the not so fast and not needing to do everything and less drama. And, so it is, as you care for your parents, it's very easy to have the resentment go both ways. But that resentment, it really, it's just a petri dish for our own sickness. So whatever you can do, and that's why I really advocate for the parasympathetic and dropping into that rest digest function and just breath work. I mean, a little bit in the morning, a little bit at night, a little bit before you pick your parent up, whatever it is, or when they say things, it's like your Teflon. You just let it roll off your back. It's like, okay. I mean, I imagine like that duck, sometimes where the water splashes just come off. I do a lot of visualization because I'm alpha, man. I can go ham and I've got that energy, but I just, I really pray and hope that what comes around goes around, right? I'm believing in the whole karmic story.
I'm reading a list of things that are, I think obviously are chapter names because they're so cute and so rhymey.
Yes, I have all.
Ground your grace, fluidity, not rigidity, progress, not perfection, self-care is healthcare, nourish to flourish. Let's talk about your book and what it says and what people should get out of it and what you hope people will get out of it. Which book do you want to talk about?
I guess I'll just start with the beginning of the story. So 15 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Oh, wow.
So maybe
cognitive kind or the muscle kind?
It was just the nervous system. So I had lesions in the brain and down the right side. So the right side developed a weakness, a foot drop, and I had a drag for probably 3 or 4 years on that right side. But that's when I was, super extroverted and the Sally helper, man. I was good at my job. I was, I was a Broadway show presenter. I would line up shows out in New York and I'd book them in. And I mean, it was fast and furious and so much fun. But the body just said, hey, girl, we're not doing this. Went through a divorce. I had a pretty complicated divorce.
Was it related to the MS?
Well, I think my MS came on right after that. Yeah, it came on hardcore. It was a complicated divorce, as I mentioned, as most are. They bring up all kinds of stress, and I just armored up and put myself. I was coaching soccer. I was still going to bring the treats, be on the PTA, and I was still doing all of the things, that I was getting external value for, rather than just kind of settling and being like, I'm pretty good. Like today, I'm like, well, I didn't really put myself together, but that's okay. People are probably hopefully listening and to my heart, not my head, they go, who cares? She doesn't look great, and, or she does and whatever. So I wrote these ahas, and I just remember one night when the disease, I'd kind of boxed it up. I went back into my corporate life, and the disease, I went to the doctor and he's like, wow, Lindy, we're going to have to up your medication and put you on a little more aggressive treatment. We've got new lesions going into the thoracic spine, which is going to affect your mobility. And I'm sitting there going, what are you talking about, Willis? Like, I am the perfect, I'm doing great. And that was kind of my first aha. It's like, whoa, I can't run so fast. I can't get so stressed. I can't be that parent that does everything. I am one mom. I am one person, not two now. And even when you are two, we do too much, let our kids, let them be bored. I mean, let them have a minute, just playing cards, playing with matchbook cards or whatever it is. And we have a few of those little moments, but anyway, so I remember that night I was like, well, I'll be the recovering alpha female. And that's how the books kind of started. And I had a lot of fun. So I left my corporate cool life, back when I was cool. I always joke about that. And as a Broadway show presenter, I mean, I could get good seats, let me tell you. And then I started kind of looking at yoga. And I remember my first yoga class, I'm like, okay, that's boring. I didn't even sweat. And then here I am, like an advocate for yoga, because, yoga tends to be this release in the mind. It drops you into the present moment. It helps you know your body. And then I just started getting this really fun little language. Like, it's like, woo-woo is not cuckoo. I started to look at that. I'm like, well, I was like, that's woo-woo. I'm not doing that. It's little, because I was trained very Western thinking and allopathic. And And then I just started to think, well, wait a minute, I feel a little better when I slow down. I feel a little better when I give myself a little grace and I let myself be quirky and just kind of own them. And it's like, oh, that just makes me more colorful. And it was okay to be the black sheep of the family. So one of the ahas I talk about is be the black sheep, like celebrate your unique gifts, whatever that looks like.
Wow. And let's face it, the older we get, we should slow down because the joints aren't as limber as they used to be. And I can't do the things that I used to do. I mean, I used to run a lot. Now I can't run. Then I started walking a lot. Now it's hard for me to walk. Now I swim a lot, and bike a lot.
But Dave, wouldn't you say, yes, when we're older, we naturally have to slow down, right? That just happens. But when we're younger, this younger generation that is so busy and they
don't move enough.
Well, there is that. They don't move enough, but they're also, I think there's a lot of value that comes from like how many likes you have and how like the social media rage. And I guess that's where I want to inspire our younger generation to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't have to get everything done just because I have a phone, a cell phone, a watch that tracks every second of every day. I'm like, there's real beauty in that unscheduled time, but you have to practice because it doesn't come natural.
It's true. I've got a full schedule. And lately, I will find myself tired. And my wife says, why don't you just relax and let's watch a movie? And I have to consciously say, is there something that I should be doing? And I'll look at my scheduler and there's nothing there. And I can breathe and say, wow, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to be anywhere. I think I can relax.
And for those caregivers or those type A people that are out there, once you allow yourself and give yourself a little bit of permission, you just start that chink in the armor, like that becomes restorative. That moment in time starts to restore your system and build your cell health and your blood and, maybe address the little, insufficiencies in maybe one of the organs of the body. And it allows you to just be a little sweeter to someone else. When you can be good to yourself, you will be good to others. We tend to be caregivers. We can be really, really ruthless with ourselves.
Yeah.
And I talk about being, the whole concept of being and just being quiet and still, it gets lost in becoming. Being is almost an art form.
I hate talking about this next thing I'm going to talk about, but I have to because I have kids. And, I joke around. We finally got the three daughters out of the house. We even got them all married off, each one twice. And, and the third one is working on number 3. So, I have experience with meeting the mate that our daughter has chosen to spend the rest of their life with. And I don't think they're the right one. But you can't really say too much without somehow spoiling the relationship. But then 10 years later, it happens and you see it and you try not to say, well, I tried to tell you and all of that because that doesn't fly.
No.
But I'm sure there are caregivers out there who are in bad marriages and it's just adding to the stress of the caregiving. And perhaps they're like some of my daughters were, who they're just needy and they have no identity outside of a man and they don't want to be alone and who would have me and I'm lucky to have them, even though they don't want them. Do you recommend that caregivers should get out of a bad marriage if they're in a bad marriage? Is no marriage better than a bad marriage?
Here's what I would say to that, honestly, and this is so true.
You have experience.
I do, but that all kind of happened before I started my recovery journey. I think as a type A, we are very quick to sort of emasculate our man because we have an expectation of how the marriage needs to look, how we should raise the kids, how they should even parent. And I'm guilty of that, a little.
Control freaks, yes? Would you call it a control?
You as a type A, you're very scheduled, very controlling, and it's really a mask for our own insecurity, but that's just what comes forward. But I really want to encourage people, if they're in a bad marriage, don't just peace out. No, that's not what I would ever advocate for. What I would say is but by all means, you start stair-stepping yourself to the very top of your checklist, above your kids, above your partner. You put your oxygen mask on. And I'm not saying go out and party so you feel good because guys think you're hot. I'm saying, or get more likes on TV. I'm saying, get a little massage, maybe sit down and sip your tea. Don't stand and eat. Little baby, tiny, I call them the better than plan in one of the books. In fact, that's book 1, I think I talk about the better than plan. Just do a little better than you did yesterday.
Yeah.
And just start these. I loved it when I would work with women. I would say, you got to what about Bob it? If you haven't seen What About Bob, you got to see What About Bob. It's like, today I was able to get the goldfish to the door. Tomorrow I'm going to get it out the door. The next time I'm going to get it to the elevator. The next time I'm going to get it down the stairs. One day I'll get to that psychotherapist and they can help me with my OCD or whatever it is they're diagnosing us with. But you got to what about Bob it? Just so today you're so spun out. I'm so tired. I can't do one thing for myself. But when I get home at the end of the day, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a nice hot bath. That is where I start. I started with a hot bath at night and 5 minutes in the morning before I got out of bed. 5 minutes. And I'd set a little thing and I'd be like, I got to get up. I got to get going. I got to do all these things. And then I'm just like, wait, 5 minutes of just resting and saying thank you and kind of
praying.
Yeah. Prayer is huge. Faith, huge. So yeah, I have a huge faith in my message, and all of these, you joke about my little labels, but they're just these fun little, this language that helps me speak to myself. It's like, ooh, I got to look up to my youngers. That's one that I absolutely love. I remember one time I was parenting the right way. Right. And I was like, now Mike, you need to, when you're around my parents or my grandparents or whatever, someone older, you need to just really look up to your elders. And my 4-year-old sat up in bed and he said, well, people should just look up to their youngers. And I'm like, you know what? You are right, sweetheart. Let's sit down. Let's build something. And if you don't like what you're having for dinner, you say this or whatever it is. I mean, sometimes you just have to eat it. But if grandma's fat, it's okay. I mean, you have to gauge how you say these things, or if mommy's fat, or whatever it is, then you have an opportunity to sit with them and teach them a nice way to maybe language that, or say, well, that just makes them more huggable, or whatever it is, you can language it and take that teachable moment with your kids. So my kids have all been outstanding teachers to me. And thankfully they're all very, very independent, but I raised them by myself, all 3 of them.
Yeah. And a lot of the reasons, a lot of the reasons why, that people don't take care of themselves is they really don't think they're worth it. They don't think they deserve it. They don't think that
we don't think we deserve a massage.
Where did all this insecurity, where is all this unworthiness come from?
Well, I think if you really step it back to post-depression, I mean, everybody had to harden up and work hard. So we got this work hard ethic to working hard equals valued. And so if you take those moments, especially if you have extra change that you can spend on a massage or whatever it is, I mean, those are, that's like a luxury item, but I mean, those precisely are those moments that will tap you into your creation energy and help you really start to discover, I don't like saying what your purpose is, but maybe get into a little more purposeful life, or it will help you in a marriage that is uncomfortable. Maybe you just love your guy. I love that song, love the one you're with. Everybody's going to have problems, but love the one you're with right now and love their quirks. Maybe they're just different, and maybe they're insecure. And how can you be a sweeter container so that they feel safe to dump a little of that load onto you, whichever way it's going.
And not just love the destination that you're going to, love the journey of getting there,
And that's the thing we don't do. Again, using my alpha metaphor, as a type A, we're so conditioned for networking and who you're going to know, who might know that person that would put this there, that you miss this actual moment in time to have an authentic connection. And really, that is all we have. We do not know about tomorrow. None of us, not one of us, nobody listening right now knows what's happening tomorrow. We have it scheduled. We have it planned. We know there's a play. We know we're going to this and all those things, but we really don't know. So it allows people to kind of hold space for the now and be like, I'm going to be curious instead of wish it away.
Yeah. And the Bible says, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own.
Yeah.
Look at the birds of the air. They don't worry about where their next meal is going to come from, but your Heavenly Father feeds them. Look at the
No.
lilies of the field. They don't worry about what to wear, but yet they're clothed in more glory than Solomon, and so
Look
on.
at Earth, how brutal we are to her on so many levels. And she still gives us flowers, and she still does summer, winter, spring, and fall. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah, we haven't pissed Mother Nature off yet.
but if we take that time to live in the moment, those are things we'll start finding an awareness for.
Lindy, I can't believe how fast our time is gone today.
It's gone already,
And
Dave.
you,
Jeez, we did it again.
Thanks so much for coming on the show. And how can listeners reach you and find out more about you and what you do?
LindyLewis.com, LindyLewis.com. And I have great speaking that I love to do to just teach these type A women, because my mission is to, get these type A women a little bit softer so that they can be a better leader, a better mentor, because there's so much chance to change right now.
I was looking at your website. You do retreats too, and there's seen
in North Idaho.
Yeah, those pictures were amazing. Where
that's my Zen den. I have it right next door. So I do the yoga right up here behind us, and then I've got a little Zen den next door where you can.
So that's your home?
Mm-hmm. The next door
like
is
some hotel retreat somewhere.
Oh, I have a beautiful space.
And
garden. Yeah. Oh, and when life blew up, man, there was one bathroom in this house. It wasn't sided. I had no yard. And then, I've just been able to really start building it out.
Well, that's an award-winning yard, if you ask me. I think you should enter it into
pretty
something.
Spectacular. I created a sacred space. That's another thing I like to work with.
It looks sacred. It does.
Find it.
And you got an aerial view. I assume you took that picture from a drone or something.
I did. I have a girlfriend who has a drone. I'm like, oh, come take a picture of my Koru. And the Koru, this is perfect for caregivers. It's a spiral. And everything is about a spiral. Good to yourself, good to others. So as you can be good to yourself, you can give that to others. So if you're spinning out and gonna, get resentful on your parents, then you take care of yourself. Take a hot bath, take a cup of hot tea.
Hot baths.
In the first book, I talk about choosing your checklist, and you check the tick boxes, and you weave good things in there for yourself.
Name your books, the first, second, and so on.
Yeah, first book is The Recovering Alpha Female. This introduces moving into grace. The second one, of course, it's all colored up. They're very happy and colorful because quirks make it colorful. Second one, I use the alphaholic metaphor. So again, using the alpha, inspiring grace as an alphaholic. And the third is this alchemy, living grounded in your grace.
Amazing. Well, remember that all our live shows become recorded pod and video casts on your favorite platforms that I mentioned. My #1 newly released book, Secrets from the Hammock, Uncommon Wisdom for Uncommon Times, is spreading wisdom all over the world, and it's available wherever books are sold, and also on my free membership website, caregiverdave.com. And don't forget to join my Caregiver Dave Facebook community of 34,000 caregivers, where you'll learn all about my new Caregiver Wellness Retreat and Mastermind in Acapulco that I offered to burn out caregivers.
That's what we need to do.
Yeah. We're just trying to keep as many of those caregivers alive, since 30% of them die before their loved ones do. Hello. So if you click the like or follow button on whatever platform you're watching or listening to this interview on, it helps us reach even more caregivers by improving Google's search engine algorithms. So thank you again, all my listeners out there all over the world, for tuning in every Wednesday and making us the #1 caregiver podcast on the internet. So until next week, same time, same channel, may God richly bless you all. Bye-bye, and thank you.
Thanks so much.
Hey, everybody, it's Dave Nasani, otherwise known as Caregiver Dave, and I'm coming to you live from this beautiful Acapulco villa, which I like to say is the perfect prescription for caregiver burnout. And I have a unique opportunity to bring 14 burned out caregivers up here so that they can decompress and do all the things that they need to do. But this is just a bonus. It actually comes with the 6-month Zoom coaching program. It's a one-on-one consult with me, Caregiver Dave, to identify where you are and where you need to go. It's a 6 monthly small group coaching sessions to smash any obstacles between you and your ideal vision of what a caregiver needs to be and caregiver success. You get my 3 free books and instructions on boundaries, grief, self-care, organization, asking for help, learning how to say no, avoiding burnout, avoiding depression, avoiding perfectionism, avoiding isolation, avoiding resentment, delegation, team building, how to have fun, how to have no guilt, the importance of gratitude, and after caregiving when you're no longer a caregiver. But this 7-day bonus is absolutely free. It comes with the coaching program that you pay for. And the food is all inclusive. I'm telling you, 7 days and 7 nights here is amazing. This is truly paradise. And I highly recommend it. For more information, go to caregiverdave.com. That's going to send you to my other website. And if you want a shortcut to get there immediately, just go to acapulcodave.com. Thanks again. I look forward to seeing you in Acapulco.
Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again.